शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। अगजानन पद्मार्कं गजाननमहर्निशम् अनेकदन्तं भक्तानाम् एकदन्तमुपास्महे। श्रीमहागणपतये नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां विषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां श्रीहयग्रीवमुपास्महे। श्रीहयग्रीवमूर्तये नमः। सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। श्रीमहासरस्वत्यै नमः। उमाकोमलहस्ताब्जसम्भावितललाटकं हिरण्यकुण्डलं वन्दे कुमारं पुष्करस्रजं। வெற்றிவேல் முருகனுக்கு ஹரஹரோஹர. லோகவீரியம் மகாபூஜ்யம் சர்வரக்ஷாகரம் விபும் பார்வதி ஹிருதயானந்தம் சாஸ்தாரம் பிரணமாம்யகம். சுவாமியே சரணமையப்பா. வாகர்த்தாபிவ சம்பிருக்தௌ வாகர்த்த பிரதிபத்தயே ஜகதः பிதரௌ வந்தே பார்வதி பரமேஸ்வரௌ. ஸ்ரீ பார்வதி பரமேஸ்வராभ्यां நமः. कोमलं कूजयन् वेणुं श्यामलोऽयं कुमारकः वेदवेद्यं परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। पीताम्बरं करविराजितचक्रशङ्खकौमोदकी सरसिजं करुणासमुद्रं राधासहायम् अतिसुन्दरमन्दहासं वातालयेशम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। कृष्णो रक्षतु मां चराचरगुरुः कृष्णं नमस्ये सदा। कृष्णेनैव सुरक्षितोऽहमसकृत् कृष्णाय दत्तं मनः। कृष्णादेव समुद्भवो मम विभो कृष्णस्य दासोऽस्म्यहम्। कृष्णे भक्तिरचञ्चलास्तु भगवन् हे कृष्ण तुभ्यं नमः। श्री गुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं। नम्राणां सन्निधत्ते सततमपि पुरस्तैरणभ्यर्थितानपि अर्थान् कामानजस्रं वितरति परमानन्दसान्द्रां गतिं च। इत्थं निःशेषलभ्यो निरवधिकफलः पारिजातो हरे त्वं क्षुद्रं तं चक्रवाटी ध्रुममभिलषति व्यर्थमर्त्यव्रजोऽयम्। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं। श्रीभट्टपादम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। वंशी विभूषितकरात् नवनीरदाभात् पीताम्बरात् अरुणबिम्बफलादरोष्टात् पूर्णेन्दुसुन्दरमुखात् अरविन्दनेत्रात् कृष्णात् परं किमपि तत्त्वमहं न जाने। കൈരണ്ടും കൂപ്പി ഞാൻ വിണ്ടുമീറക്കുന്നു നീരജലോചന നിന്നോടായി. ഏതീനു മഞ്ഞനെ കുമ്പീടേണ്ടാത്തോരു രീതിയിൽ നീ എന്നെ പാലിക്കെന്നായി. കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ. Good morning, everyone. Okay, Aarti, can you do 94?
Sure. शुद्धा निष्कामधर्मैः प्रवरगुरुगिरा तत्स्वरूपं परं ते शुद्धं देहेन्द्रियादिव्यपगतमखिलव्याप्तमावेदयन्ते। नानात्वस्तौल्यकाशादितु गुणजवपुः सङ्गतो ध्यासितं ते वह्नेर्दारुप्रभेदेषु इव महदनुता दिक्तता शान्ततादि.
And the last line after in the Prabhedeshviva, there is a comma, okay? Fourth line.
आचार्याख्यादरस्तारणि समनुमिलत् शिष्यरूपोत्तरारण्या वेदोद्भासितेन स्फुटतरपरिबोधाग्निना दह्यमाने कर्माणि वासना तत्कृततनुभुवन भ्रान्तिकान्तारपूरे दाह्या भावेन विद्या शिखी च विरते त्वन्मयी कल्पवस्था एवं त्वत्प्राप्तितोऽन्यो न हि खलु निखिल क्लेशहानेरुपायो नैकान्तात्यन्तिकास्ते कृषिवदगदषड्गुण्यषट्कर्मयोगाः दुर्वैकल्यैरकल्या अपि निगमपताः तत्फलान्यप्यवाप्ता मत्ता स्वां विस्मरन्तः प्रसजति पतने यान्त्यनन्तान् विषादान् त्वल्लोकादन्यलोकः क्वनु भयरहितो यत्परा तद्भयान्ते त्वद्भीतः सत्यलोकेऽपि न सुखवसतिः पद्मभूः पद्मनाभ एवं भावे त्वधर्माजितबहुतमसां काकतानारकाणां तन्मे त्वं चिन्दिबन्धं वरद कृपणबन्धो कृपापूरसिन्धो यातार्थ्यात् त्वन्मयस्यैव हि मम न विभो वस्तुतो बन्धमोक्षौ माया विद्यातनुभ्यां तव तु विरचितौ स्वप्नबोधोपमौ तौ बद्धे जीवद्विमुक्तिं गतवती च विदा तावती तावदेको भुङ्क्ते देहद्रुमस्थो विषयफलरसानापरो निर्व्यतात्मा जीवन्मुक्तत्वमेवं विदमिति वचसा किं फलं दूरदूरे तन्नामाशुद्धबुद्धेः न च लघुमनसः शोधनं भक्तितोऽन्यत् तन्मे विष्णो कृषीष्टाः त्वयि कृतसकलप्रार्पणं भक्तिभारम् येन स्यामंशु किञ्चित् गुरुवचनमिलत्वत्प्रबोधस्त्वदात्मा शब्दब्रह्मण्यपीह प्रयतितमनसः त्वां न जानन्ति केचित् कष्टं वन्द्यश्रमास्ते चिरतरमिह गां बिभ्रते निष्प्रसूतिम् यस्यां विश्वाभिरामाः सकलमलहरा दिव्यलीलावताराः सच्चित् सान्द्रं च रूपं तव न निगदितं तां न वाचं ब्रियासम् यो वान् यादृशो वा त्वमिति किमपि नैवावगच्छामि भूमन् एवं चानन्यभावः त्वदनुभजनमेवाद्रिये चैद्यवैरिन् त्वल्लिङ्गानां त्वदङ्घ्रिप्रियजनसदसां दर्शनस्पर्शनादिः भूयान्मे त्वत्प्रपूजा न किनुति गुणकर्मानुकीर्त्याधरोऽपि
Arthi, the first line, first word, right? Yo yavan. Yo yavan. Okay, just keep. Yeah.
यद्यल्लभ्येत तत्तव समुपघृतं देवदासोऽस्मि तेऽहं त्वद्गेहोन्मार्जनाद्यं भवतु मम मुहुः कर्म निर्मायमेव सूर्याग्निब्राह्मणात्मादिषु लसित चतुर्बाहुमाराधये त्वां त्वत्प्रेमार्द्रत्वरूपो मम सततमभिष्यन्दतां भक्तियोगः.
In the first line, after samu pahrutam, there is a pause. Okay, first line.
ऐक्यं ते दान होम व्रत नियम तप सांख्य योगैर्दुरापं त्वत्सङ्गेनैव गोप्यः किल सुकृतितमा प्रापुरानन्द सान्द्रम् भक्तेष्वन्येषु भूयस्वपि बहुमनुषे भक्तिमेव त्वमासां तन्मे त्वद्भक्तिमेव दृढय हर गदान् कृष्णवातालयेश.
Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Very good. Okay, so let's get going with 95. So Anu, you can be a student, and Shobha, you can be a student for the first half. Okay. So this is 95 is Kaivalya Siddhi Prakara Varnanam. So again, it's a continuation of this 93, 94, 95, all of that, which is really Krishna's message to Uddhava, which Bhattadripad is kind of talking in first person, right? So whatever is there as a message, he's saying, I want it, or please bless me with it, and that's what he's requesting. So stanza 1. आधौ हैरण्यगर्भीं तनुमपि कलजीवात्मिकामास्तितस्त्वं जीवत्वं प्राप्य माया गुणगणखचितो वर्तसे विश्वयोने तत्रोद्वृद्धेन सत्त्वेन तु गुणयुगलं भक्तिभावं गतेन छित्त्वा सत्त्वं च हित्वा पुनरनुपहितो वर्तिता हे त्वमेव. So a few things here. So he first starts off by saying Hiranya Garbhim. He says, before everything was formed, right? So all of these things, there was nothing which was there in this world. Anything which could be manifested in some form, or something which cannot be manifested. All of that was completely not there. It was complete dissolution. It was all inside you. Everything was in equilibrium. No day, no night, no birth, no death, no liberation, none of that stuff. And then what happens is, then when everything starts, when the sattva guna, series primarily is going to deal with the gunas here, the next few stanzas. When the sattva guna is at a high, then everybody feels that they are not alone. They are part of a universal soul, part of a universal consciousness, saying we are all one, right? That's what you feel when you are high in your sattva guna. But what happens is later on, when the rajas and tamaguna is in the ignorance, the I thing starts coming in, then you start separating your jiva from the rest of them, saying, I am unique, right? I am this person. And you start separating all of those things. But he says, the problem, what that happens is, he says, in this material world, right? He says, nobody can be pure sattva guna. He says, no matter how much good qualities you have, you're still going to always have a little bit of that passion, and you are going to have a little bit of an ignorance. So for example, even if you do great things, you will go on say, all the charity you saw there was donated by me, right? So you kind of, it comes out of your mouth because you feel that you need to get a little bit of appreciation towards this. You have a certain desire out of doing good things. He says it's impossible to completely have pure sattva-guna. But he says, however, the more you have sattva-guna, you can reduce your other tamas and rajas as much as possible in this materialistic world, right? However, he says, but for you, eventually, right, what you have to attain is, you have to attain that original sattva guna, which is pure, that I am one with the rest of the world, or the rest of the consciousness. So that one, he says, only possible, right, by constant prayer and devotion, and with your blessings, I'll be able to transcend even this material sattva guna to reach the original sattva guna, which is association with the supreme consciousness. So only by doing that, I'll be able to identify with you as one, right? And that's the state I want to get to. So Adau Hiranya Garbhim Tanum Avikala Jivatmi Kam Asti Tastwam. So this line, it'll feel like it's got a couple of extra letters. Okay, so it might not exactly land. So Tanum Avikala Jivatmi Kam Asti Tastwam, comma Jivatwam Prapya Maya Guna Ghana Khachito Vartase Vishwayone. आधौ हैरण्यगर्भीं तनुमविकलजीवात्मिकामास्तितस्त्वं जीवत्वं प्राप्य माया गुणगणखचितो वर्तसे विश्वयोने.
आदौ हैरण्यगर्भी अविकल जीवात्मिकाम् आस्तितस्त्वं जीवत्वं प्राप्य माया गुणगणखचितो वर्तसे विश्वयोने. आदौ हैरण्यगर्भी अविकल जीवात्मिकाम् आस्तितस्त्वं जीवत्वं प्राप्य माया गुणगणखचितो वर्तसे विश्वयोने.
Anu, on the first line, Hiranya Garbhim, there's a im, okay, there. I don't know if you said that. Okay.
Yeah, book la illa.
Okay. So Garbhim. Okay. If you don't have, just put an im there. So Garbhim, im.
And there is a pause after Garbhim?
No, that goes continuously.
Okay.
So only one comma, right, Rajesh?
Yeah, end of that line for both the lines, yeah.
Adau Hiranyagarbhim तनुमविकल जीवात्मिकामास्थितस्त्वं जीवत्वं प्राप्य माया गुणगणकचितो वर्तसे विश्वयोते योने आदौ हैरण्यगर्भीं तनुमविकल जीवात्मिका भास्तितस्त्वं जीवत्वं प्राप्य माया गुणगणकचितो वर्तसे विश्वयोने.
Shubhan, this Hiranya Garbhim, there's no comma after that, okay? It just goes continuously, okay?
Breath, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. As long as you, have it that way, yeah. Tatrod vridhena satvena tu guna yugalam, comma, bhakti bhavam gatena, comma, chitva sattvam cha hitva, comma, punaranupahito vartitahe tvameva. तत्रोद्वृद्धेन सत्त्वेन तु गुणयुगलं भक्तिभावं गतेन छित्त्वा सत्त्वं च हित्वा पुनरनुपहितो वर्तिता हे त्वमेव.
तत्रोद्वृद्धेन सत्त्वेन तु गुणयुगलं भक्तिभावं गतेन छित्त्वा सत्त्वं च हित्वा पुनरनुपहितो वर्तिता हे त्वमेव. तत्रोद्वृद्धेन सत्त्वेन तु गुणयुगलं भक्तिभावं गतेन छित्त्वा सत्त्वं च हित्वा पुनरनुपहितो वर्तिता हे त्वमेव.
तत्तोद्वृद्धेन सत्त्वेन तु गुणयुगलं भक्तिभावं गतेन चित्वा सत्त्वं च हित्वा पुनरनुपहितो वर्तिते ताहे त्वमेव. तत्तोद्वृद्धेन सत्त्वेन तु गुणयुगलं भक्तिभावं गतेन चित्वा सत्त्वं च हित्वा पुनरनुपहितो वर्तिते ताहे त्वमेव.
Stanza 2. सत्त्वोन्मेषात् कदाचित् खलु विषयरसे दोषबोधेऽपि भूमन् भूयोऽप्येषु प्रवृत्तिः सतमसि रजसि प्रोद्धते दुर्निवारा चित्तं तावद्गुणाश्च ग्रथितमिह मितः तानि सर्वाणि रोद्धुं तुर्ये त्वय्येकभक्तिः शरणमिति भवान् हंसरूपी न्यगादीत्. So we already spoke about how all this, the sensory attachments, no matter what sense it is, right? Especially it said the tongue or any sense is always impossible to control, right? And he says when the rajas and tamas, like we spoke about, the passion and the ignorance, when that goes up, he says it's very difficult to get these senses under control. And just only when your sattva guna goes up, then you are able to get it a little bit under control, right? So here Uddhava actually goes and asks Krishna that I heard that you had come and given instructions to Brahma and the Sanaka Muni and everybody, right? So can you please explain to me what those instructions you had given? So at that time, Krishna says, not just you, even the Sanat Kumaras went and, asked Brahma, who's their father, right, or whose mind they came out of, saying that, this mind is uncontrollable. It's naturally getting attracted to all these sensory objects. And if I have to get liberation, I cannot have my mind wandering towards all these sensory objects. So what do? How do I bring my mind under control, right? So Brahma, who himself was born from the Lord, even because he is also involved in the act of creation, so he said, even I don't have full control. So he also prays, and then he says, the Krishna then tells Uddhava that I then came, Hamsa Rupi, I then came in the form of a swan, and then I preached this knowledge, the Sankhya Yoga and all these knowledges to Brahma and Sanaka, and the Sanaka Rishis, right? And essentially what he's saying is, he says, the problem is you identify yourself as the doer and as the person who is enjoying the pleasure. He says, as long as you identify yourself as you will always feel attracted to wanting things, wanting to do things, because you feel you are the one who is actually reaping the benefit of it, right? So you have to elevate yourself above that whole thing, which is not easy to do, right? Because he says the mind is impossible to control. Your mind thinks, I am the one who's doing this hard work, so I am the one who's going to reap the benefits, or I am the one who's going and buying something, I am the one who's going to reap the benefits of eating it. He says, because of which it is not going to happen. However, he says the only way, and this is what Krishna comes and says so many times, the only way, he says, is constant, Tvayeka Bhaktihi. You have to be constantly devoted to me, and by constantly being devoted to me, you will develop a level of intelligence, which is the Mahat, which is the first one. You develop a level of intelligence. So when you are getting attracted, Step one is your mind realizing that I am getting attracted to the sensory objects. That's a step number one. It is first that has to happen, right? And then you then control, and the only way is with constant devotion to me, you'll naturally start going step by step away from it. It's kind of, they say that you can't drop something cold turkey. So you can't drop it off on one fine day saying, okay, from tomorrow I have my tongue under control. It's not going to happen. It has to gradually come. And the only way is you keep increasing your sattva guna, which is constantly by meditating and praying on me, you can increase it. And then you, so this is what Hamsa Rupi Nyagadi, you yourself, O Lord, came in the form of a swan and told to Sanat Kumaras and Brahma as well. So Sattvon Meshat Kadachit Khalu Vishaya Rase, comma, Dosha Bhodepi Bhuman, comma, Bhuyopeshu Pravrittis. So double it and a tha there. Pravrittis Satamasi Rajasi, and then comma, Prodhate Durnivara. सत्त्वोन्मेषात् कदाचित् खलु विषयरसे दोषबोधेऽपि भूमन् भूयोऽप्येषु प्रवृत्तिः सतमसि रजसि प्रोद्धते दुर्निवारा.
सत्त्वोन्मेषात् कदाचित् खलु विषयरसे दोषबोधेऽपि भूमन् भूयोऽप्येषु प्रवृत्तिः सतमसि रजसि प्रोद्धते दुर्निवारा. प्रोद्धते धन्यवाद.
Prodhate. So first dha id and then dha, second dha.
प्रोद्धते.
Yep.
सत्त्वोन्मेषात् कदाचित् खलु विषयरसे दोषबोधेऽपि भूमन् भूयोऽप्येषु प्रवृत्तिः सतमसि रजसि प्रोद्धते दुर्निवारा.
सत्त्वोन्मेषात् कदाचित् खलु विषयरसे दोषबोधेऽपि भूमन् भूयेऽप्येषु प्रवृत्तिः सदमसि रजसि प्रोद्धते दुर्निवारा. सत्त्वोन्मेषात् कदाचित् खलु विषयरसे दोषबोधेऽपि भूमन् भूयोऽप्येषु प्रवृत्तिः सदमसि रजसि प्रोद्धते दुर्निवारा.
Chittam Tavat Gunascha Grati Tamiha Mitaha. So that entire line is together. Gunascha Grati Tamiha Mitaha. That is there. Remove Visarga and a comma. Tani Sarvani Rodhum. Same thing. Id and a dha. Rodhum, comma. Turye Twayeka Bhaktihi. That ish. Remove that ish. Put a Visarga, comma. Bhaktihi. Sharanamiti Bhavan Hamsa Rupi Nyagadit. Chittam Tavad Gunascha Gratitamiha Mitaha Tani Sarvani Rodhum Turye Twayeka Bhaktihi Sharanamiti Bhavan Hamsa Rupi Nyagadit.
चित्तं तावद् गुणाश्च ग्रथितमिह मिथः तानि सर्वाणि रोद्धुं तुर्ये त्वय्यैकभक्तिः शरणमिति भवान् हंसरूपी न्यगादीत्. चित्तं तावद् गुणाश्च ग्रथितमिह मिथः तानि सर्वाणि रोद्धुं तुर्ये त्वय्यैकभक्तिः शरणमिति भवान् हंसरूपी न्यगादीत्.
चित्तं तावद् गुणाश्च ग्रथितमिह ग्रहतमिह मिद मिद ಅದು ಮಿಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ರಾಜೇಶ್.
ಇಲ್ಲ ಗುಣಾಶ್ಚ ಗ್ರತಿ ತಮಿಹ ಮಿತಃ.
இன்னொருத்துல மிதஸ்தானின்னு கொடுத்திருந்தது. So I was confused.
Mithasthani and the Mithasthani and the is goes away, so that becomes Mitaha Visarga, right? Mitaha and then comma Tani Sarvani Rodhum.
Break பண்ணி சொல்லணும். Very good. I'll do it. चित्तं तावत् गुणाश्च ग्रहतमिह ग्रहतमिदमिद तानि मिदः तानि सर्वाणि रोद्धुं तुर्ये त्वय्येक भक्तिः शरणमिति भवान् हंसरूपी न्यगादीत्.
Shobha, and the third line like Grathi, right? You're saying Grata, you said Grathi, right?
ग्रथितमिह.
Yeah, correct.
चित्तं तावत् गुणाश्च ग्रथितमिहदः ग्रहतमि.
அது என்ன பண்ணனாக்கா, I'll tell you, I think that the challenge is coming there, right? That Tamiha is there, right? Grati Tamiha is one word, right? And then Mitaha is a separate word, right? I think you have to kind of say the whole thing together. So Chittam Tavad Gunascha Grati Tamiha Mitaha.
Okay.
Okay, the three words you say together.
चित्तं तावद् गुणाश्च ग्रदतमिह विदः तानि सर्वाणि रोद्धुं तुर्ये त्वय्येक भक्तिः शरणमिति भवान् हंसरूपी न्यकादीत् चित्तं तावद् गुणाश्च
இங்க கிரத சொல்றேன், கிரதி, right? That's like first line. Third line, I mean. தாவத் குணாச்ச கிரதி.
ग्रदितमिह विदः तानि सर्वाणि रोद्धुं तुर्ये त्वय्येक भक्तिः शरणमिति भवान् हंसरूपी न्यकादीत्.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit of a tongue twister there. So, stanza 3. Sante shreyansi bhuyamsyapi ruchibhidaya karminam nirmitani क्षुद्रानन्दाश्च सान्ता बहुविधगतयः कृष्णतेभ्यो भवेयुः त्वं चाचक्यातसख्येन नुमहिततमां श्रेयसां भक्तिमेकां त्वद्भक्त्यानन्दतुल्यः खलु विषयजुषां सम्मतः केन वा स्यात्. He says, that there's the flexibility of the Sanatana Dharma is each one can pick their route, right? So if you go in the Vedas, it says there are so many rituals which are laid out. It says you do this, you're going to get this benefit. You do this, you're going to get this benefit. Pariharam is there, right? We also hear that all the time, right? You go perform, I was just having this conversation with Vishali on this Navagraha Homam and all. Anyway, so it just says you do this, you get these benefits, all of these things they're saying, right? But what, when Krishna is saying Uddhava is, see, all of that will give you benefits. Nobody is saying it's not going to give you the benefits, right? But what happens is it's only going to be temporary and materialistic benefits that's going to come, right? For you to elevate, right, you cannot be doing these things which are giving you certain things in return. So that's what he's also saying here. He says that the ultimate bliss and joy you get from the full devotion, you are not going to get from the interim benefits you are going to get from doing these various things. So I was just reminded of that Kapilopakyanam, right? So that stanza 8, it says, Pitrasura guna ganayaji dharmiko yo grihastah sacha nipatati kale dakshina dvopagami. Saying this grihastha, the grihastha, who's doing all the right things. He's doing offerings to the gods. He's doing offerings to the Pitrus. He's following all the right things. Doesn't mean it's all going to go waste. He's all going to get benefits. But where he's going to go, when the time comes, Dakshina Dopagam, he's going to go through the southern plane of the sun, because he's not going to get liberated. Because he's accumulated good karma, he's going to be born again. Right? And the problem with getting born again is you're going to now start building up the karma. And then even there Kapila says, which is again same Bhagavan only says, Mai nihitama kamam karma tudak padartham. So the one who is completely devoted to me and doing everything and surrendering it to me, he is going to go through the northern plane, which means there's only fully liberation. You're not bound by anything, right? Which is kind of the same thing that he's saying here also to Uddhava is, you have to, don't get, sucked into these trivial pursuits, right? Of saying, if I do this, I'll get this benefits, because it's only going to wind you up even more. So, Santi Shreyamsi Bhuyamsyapi, Ruchi Bhidaya Karminam Nirmitani, Kshudra Nandascha Santa Bahu Vida Gatayaha, Krishna Tebhyo Bhaveyuhu. Sante Shreyamsi Bhuyamsyapi Ruchibhidaya Karminam Nirmitani Kshudranandascha Santa Bahuvida Gatayah Krishna Tebhyo Bhaveyuhu.
Santi Shreyamsi Bhuyamsyapi Ruchibhidaya Karminam Nirmitani Kshudranandascha Santa Bahuvidhagatayah Krishna Tebhyo Bhaveyuhu. Santi Shreyamsi Bhuyamsyapi Ruchibhidaya Karminam Nirmitani Kshudranandascha Santa Bahuvidhagatayah Krishna Tebhyo Bhaveyuhu.
Sandhi Shreyamsi Bhuyamsyapi Ruchibhidaya Karminam Nirmitani Shudranandascha Shanta Bahuvidhagatayah Krishna Tebhyo Bhaveyuhu. Sandhi Shreyamsi Bhuyamsyapi Ruchibhidaya Karminam Nirmitani Shudranandascha Shanta Bahuvidhagatayah Krishna Tebhyo Bhaveyuhu.
Tvam Chachakhyata Sakhye Nanu mahita tamam, comma, shreyasam bhaktimekam, comma, tvad bhaktyananda tulyaha, comma, khalu vishaya jusham sammadaha, put a sammadah kena va syat. त्वं चाचक्यातसख्येन नुमहिततमां श्रेयसां भक्तिमेकां त्वद्भक्त्यानन्दतुल्यः खलु विषयजुषां सम्मदः केन वा स्यात्.
त्वं चाचक्यातसख्येन नु महिततमां श्रेयसां भक्तिमेकां त्वद्भक्त्यानन्दतुल्यः खलु विषयजुषां सम्मदः केन वा स्यात्. त्वं चाचक्यातसख्येन नु महिततमां श्रेयसां भक्तिमेकां त्वद्भक्त्यानन्दतुल्यः खलु विषयजुषां सम्मदः केन वा स्यात्.
त्वञ्जक्याज्ञातसख्ये ननु महितमतमां श्रेयसां भक्तिमेकां त्वद्भक्त्यानन्दतुल्यः खलु विषयजुषां सम्मदः केन वा स्यात्. त्वञ्जक्याज्ञातसख्ये ननु महिततमां श्रेयसां भक्तिमेकां त्वद्भक्त्यानन्दतुल्यः खलु विषयजुषां सम्मदः केन वा स्यात्.
Rajesh, ஒரே ஒரு first.
Yeah.
The first word வந்து tvancha.
Yeah, tvam, it's tvam chachakyata. Chachakyata, that's one word.
அது சேர்த்து சொல்றது tvanchachakyathaன்னு சொல்லணுமா?
Yeah, see, என்னன்னா சான்ஸ்கிரிட்ல வந்து when there's kha, cha, அதெல்லாம் வந்ததுனாக்கா அந்த இம்ம வந்து some people say it as in. Okay. But it's a mixed thing. A lot of people don't say it, some people say it. So I don't generally correct that because there's two different schools of thoughts are there. So if you want to say it as tvam, word is tvam only. But because cha is coming, sometimes it becomes twan chachakyata and some people say. So so but you can even say tvam chachakyata also. So that is a debatable one. So that's
thank you.
Stanza 4. त्वद्भक्त्या तुष्टबुद्धेः सुखमिह चरतो विच्युताशस्य चाशाः सर्वास्युः सौख्यमय्यः सलिलकुहरगस्येव तोयैकमय्यः सोऽयं खल्विन्द्रलोकं कमलजभवनं योगसिद्धीश्च हृद्याः नाकाङ्क्षत्येतदास्तां स्वयमनुपतिते मोक्षसौख्येऽप्यनीहः. So this constant thing which comes, right, is how do I find happiness all the time? That's always a big challenge because, everybody says I'll find happiness when I get the next thing. When the next thing comes and you feel like, you all rewind back 20 years and say, what will make you happy? That doesn't make you happy anymore because you already have that, right, long time back. So here, what Krishna is telling Uddhava is there are a few things. He says, first, you should not have any desire in this world. No, easy to say, but anyway, that's what he's saying. First, you should have no desire in this world. Number 2, you should have control over your senses. Then number 3, he says is you should be the same no matter what the situation is. Whether good or bad, your consciousness should still be in the exact same things. And then who is fully in me, deeply devoted to me, he says that person will find sukhameha. They'll always find happiness no matter where they are and what the situation is. He says just these 3 things. Get your senses under control. Do not want or desire anything. And then be the same no matter what the situation is. He says these are the 3 things and be devoted to me. He says this is just like when an aquatic creature is at the very bottom of the ocean. No matter where the creature goes, it's going to find water. Similarly, when you are following these things, no matter where you are, no matter what happens, you'll always be happy. That's the only way to get happiness. There's nothing else that's going to be able to give you the happiness. That is the first one. And then he says, one who's completely devoted to me, and this always reminds me of those prachetas, right? Those 10 prachetas sons who were meditating so much, right? He says, one who is always devoted to me, they will not want Indralokam or Kamalajabhavanam. They will not want heaven. They will not want the Brahma Lokam. They will not want any of those things, right? Because he says, the devotion should be such that you should not want anything. Right? And the best example are the Gopikas, right? So they do not want anything. They're just purely in devotion, right? So he says that is how the devotion should be. The moment you are devoted, saying, Krishna, please help me out. I need this tomorrow. That means you are not reached that point. It's not bad. I'm not saying it is bad. We all do that, right? But he's saying for you to reach that pure devotion, you should not ask anything from the Lord, right? You should say, if I am devoted to you, then who else is going to bless me except the Lord, right? See, you, no matter how many times you ask, unless God decides he's going to help you out, you're not going to get help. So you should not even have to ask, right? He says that should be the level of devotion, right? So you should you completely be devoted so that you don't absolutely ask anything. He says only at that point you will ultimately, you should not even ask for liberation, he says. Just don't even, why are you asking for liberation? If the Lord decides the time is right, you will get liberated. Your duty is just to be devoted to the Lord. So that's what he says. In Bhattacharya also saying is that by being so devoted, even though you don't ask for liberation, you will get liberated because that's a byproduct of being devoted to the Lord. But he says, do not ask for, no, do not have any desires and be just purely devoted. That is the best way out. So tvat bhaktya tushta buddhehe, comma, sukhamiha charato vichyutashasya chashaha, comma, sarvaha, put a is, syuhu, put a is again, so sarvasyus saukyamayaha, comma, salila kuhara gasyeva toyaikamayaha. त्वद्भक्त्या तुष्टबुद्धेः सुखमिह चरतो विच्युताशस्य चाशाः सर्वास्युः सौख्यमय्यः सलिलकुहरगस्येव तोयैकमय्यः.
त्वद्भक्त्या तुष्टबुद्धेः सुखमिह चरतो विच्युताशस्य चाशाः सर्वस्युः सौख्यमय्यः सलिलकुहरगस्येव तोयैकमय्यः. त्वद्भक्त्या तुष्टबुद्धेः सुखमिह चरतो विच्युताशस्य चाशाः सर्वस्युः सौख्यमय्यः सलिलकुहरगस्येव तोयैकमय्यः.
त्वद्भक्त्या तुष्टबुद्धेः सुखमिव चरतो विच्युताशस्य चासाः सर्वासु सौख्यमय्यः सलिल कुहरगस्येव तोयैकमय्यः. त्वद्भक्त्या तुष्टबुद्धेः सुखमिव चरतो विच्युताशस्य चाशाः सर्वासु सौख्यमय्यः सलिल कुहरगस्येव तोयैकमय्यः.
So I think this chapter is a little bit like that. It's also, it's like the same thing like the other chapters, but sometimes the words, right, are different, right? And then this chapter is a little bit like that. Soyam khalvindra lokam kamalaja bhavanam, comma, yoga siddhischa hridyaha, comma, nakankshatyetadastam. Again, this word you can't break it. So nakang, ing sound, nakankshatyetadastam, comma, स्वयं अनुपतिते मोक्ष सौख्येप्यनीहः. सोऽयं खल्विन्द्रलोकं कमलज भवनं योगसिद्धिश्च हृद्याः नाकाङ्क्षत्येतदास्तां स्वयमनुपतिते मोक्ष सौख्येप्यनीहः.
That is a comma after the Nagankshetadastam.
Yeah, after that there's a comma, yes. Then the rest of the line is together.
सोऽयं कल्विन्द्रलोकं कमलज भवनं योगसिद्धिश्च हृद्याः नाकाङ्क्षत्येतदास्तां स्वयमनुपतिते मोक्षसौख्येप्यनीहः. सोऽयं कल्विन्द्रलोकं कमलज भवनं योगसिद्धिश्च हृद्याः नाकाङ्क्षत्येतदास्तां स्वयमनुपतिते मोक्षसौख्येप्यनीहः.
सोऽयं कल्विन्द्रलोकं कमलज भवनं योगसिद्धिश्च हृद्याः नाकाङ्क्षत्येतदास्तां स्वयमनुपतिते मोक्षसौख्येप्यनीहः. सोऽयं कल्विन्द्रलोकं कमलज भवनं योगसिद्धिश्च हृद्याः नाकाङ्क्षत्येतदास्तां स्वयमनुपतिते मोक्षसौख्येप्यनीहः.
Stanza 5. त्वद्भक्तो बाध्यमानोऽपि च विषयरसैरिन्द्रिया शान्तिहेतोः भक्त्यैवाक्रम्यमाणैः पुनरपि खलु तैर्दुर्बलैर्नाभिजय्यः सप्तार्चिर्दीपितार्चिर्दहति किल यथा भूरिधारुप्रपञ्चं त्वद्भक्त्योगे तथैव प्रदहति दुरितं दुर्मदः क्वेन्द्रियाणाम्. So again, he continues with that, right? Saying again, the whole thing is about the senses, because to obtain liberation, you have to get the control over the senses. So he says, anyone, even if you, no matter how much control you have, there's always a chance you are going to slip and fall, right? So even if somebody is always devoted to Krishna, he says, there's always, because of the past karma you might have committed, or because of any other ignorance, you are going to slip and you're going to get attracted, or you're going to get, you're going to lose control. But he says, don't worry. Because if you're always devoted to the Lord, then it's his responsibility to then take care that it gets extinguished or it gets removed. And the example he gives here is just like how when there is a bunch of wood that is there and a fire comes, the fire just burns all the wood away. He says, think of the devotion like a fire that is coming. And when you slip and fall, that is just going to burn all the desires that you have. So this also, again, if you remember this, remains on the Ajamilo Pakyanam. If you remember that Ajamila at the deathbed, he called out Narayana. So then the Yamadutas were there, and then the gods' emissaries were there. And then they were having this conversation with Ajamila is hearing. So in that, one of the thing it said, stanza 9, it says, Nrinam Buddhyapi Mukunda Kirtam. He says, listen, this person must have done so many things, right? He must have done so many things in his past. However, the chanting the Lord's names is as without even knowing the meaning. Just without knowing the meaning, just saying the name is as good as you taking a medicine which is going to cure the disease, because you don't know how the medicine is going to cure the disease, but it cures, right? Because you just take the medicine. Similarly, just like how the fire burns, anything that actually comes along its way, similarly, the chanting the Lord's name is going to help you out. So that's what even here exactly the same thing is being said, that even if you slip, don't worry. Eventually, the devotion is going to come and help you out. So, Tvad Bhakto Badhyamanopi cha, Vishaya Rasair Indriya, if you want to break it. Vishaya Rasair Indriya Shanti Hetoho. So, put a visarga there and comma. Next line on top of that Bhakti, there is a ir that goes away. Bhakti va kramya manaihi, Punarapi Kalu Tair Durbalair Nabhijayaha. Twadbhakto Badhyamano Picha Vishaya Rasair Indriya Shanti Hetoho Bhakti Eva Kramyamanaihi Punarapi Kalu Tair Durbalair Nabhijayaha.
Twadbhakto Badhyamanopi cha Vishayarasairindraya Shantihetoho Bhaktyirva Kramyamanaihi Punarapi Khalur Tair Durbalair Nabhijayaha. Twadbhakto Badhyamanopi cha Vishayarasairindraya Shantihetoho Bhaktyirva Kramyamanaihi Punarapi Khalur Tair Durbalair Nabhijayaha.
Anu, on the second line, first word, right? I heard an extra ir sound. So it's Bhaktyaiva Kramya Manaihi.
Bhaktyaiva Kramyamanaihi.
Yeah, that's right.
Twadbhakto bhatyamanopi cha vishayarasair indriya shanti hetoho bhakteva krayamanehi punarapi kaludair durbalair nabhijayaha. Twadbhakto bhatyamanopi cha vishayarasair indriya shanti hetoho bhakteva agramyamanehi punarapi kaludair durbalair nabhijayaha.
Shubha, the first line la Badhyamano Picha. Adukapram there is a comma, okay? First line. Saptarchir Deepitarchir. So this again multiple ears coming, right? Saptarchir Deepitarchir Dahati Kila. Some books have Thatha, some books have Yatha. So you change it to Yatha. So Kila Yatha, comma. Bhuri Daru Prapancham, Tvat Bhaktyoge Tathaiva Pradahati Duritam, Durmadaha, put a ich sound, Durmadah Kvendriyanam. So kaha indriyanam, so kwa indriyanam, so kwendriyanam. सप्तार्चिर्दीपितार्चिर्दहति किल यथा भूरिधारु प्रपञ्चम् त्वद्भक्त्योगे तथैव प्रदहति दुरितं दुर्मदः क्वेन्द्रियाणाम्
सप्तार्चिर्दीपितार्चिर्दहति किल यथा भूरिदारुप्रपञ्चम् त्वद्भक्त्योगे तथैव प्रदहति दुरितं दुर्मदः क्वेन्द्रियाणाम् सप्तार्चिर्दीपितार्चिर्दहति किल यथा भूरिदारुप्रपञ्चम् त्वद्भक्त्योगे तथैव प्रदहति दुरितं दुर्मदः क्वेन्द्रियाणाम्
सप्ताच्चिर्दीपिताच्चिर् दहति किल यदा भूरितारुप्रपञ्चम् त्वद्भक्त्योगे तदैव प्रदहति दुरितं दुर्मदः क्वेन्द्रियाणाम् सप्तार्चिर्दीपितार्चिर्दहति किल यदा भूरितारुप्रपञ्चम् त्वद्भक्त्योगे तदैव प्रदहति दुरितं दुर्मदः क्वेन्द्रियाणाम्.
Stanza 6. चित्तार्ध्री भावमुच्चैर्वपुषि च पुलकं हर्षभाष्पं च हित्वा चित्तं शुद्धेत् कथं वा किमु बहु तपसा विद्यया बीतभक्तेः त्वद्गातास्वादसिद्धाञ्जन सततमरीमृज्यमानोऽयमात्मा चक्षुर्वत्तत्त्वसूक्ष्मं भजति न तु तथाभ्यस्तया तर्ककोट्या. So again, it continues saying, all the people who, do the yoga, any type of yoga, right? That there's the following, the mystic yoga, where they still might keep Krishna as the ultimate God, right? Let's say, or that, or people who follow the Sankhya philosophy, which was also said by Kapila, who is the incarnation of the Lord. So no matter, or any rituals or any activities you do, he says, Krishna himself is saying, that does not bring me, you cannot control me by doing that. Right, you'll reap the benefits of it. It's good things you're doing. You're going to get the benefits of it. He says, but if you want to keep me under control, he says the only way is through pure devotion to me. That is the only thing by which you can keep me under control, right? And some of the examples that the Uddhava and Krishna discuss, even Bhatripad is saying here, is he says that the first step, he says that, they say, right, pull the rikirda, I'm having horripilation all over my body, right? When I'm praying or I'm chanting or I'm doing all these things, right? He says, when you start getting such a feeling, then he says your heart will melt. And says when your heart will melt, then he says tears will start flowing out of your eyes, because only when your heart melts, tears, you have to first feel that external sensation on your body, right? When you're doing something, and then you start feeling it inside, your heart then melts. And so when your heart melts, then you start tears coming out of your eyes, and then when you have tears coming out of your eyes, then you'll cry in a spiritual happiness. So it says that level of devotion when you can get, says then even the Lord is your servant, right? And then even Krishna himself says that the dust which is coming out of the feet of my devotees, right, that I take and then I purify the entire world. So it is kind of, and Krishna himself says is, that I am like, like we always said, he's always said, I am a servant of my devotees, right? So he says, anytime my devotees are there, then you be close to my devotees. He says that itself is a huge blessing, because I am always there. Right, so that's what he says. Again, it all revolves around, right, and kind of comes in and says the devotion is the easiest and the best form of liberation, because you're not bound by anything, right? And he gives a few examples, right? He says, like, just like how when you have eye disease, and he gives some examples here. Says you put an application in the eye which completely clears your eye and makes your eye look better. Similarly, the devotion is going to clean up all the negative energy and everything else you have, and that is the best way out. And you don't have to worry about this tarka kotya, is like the debating, the philosophy of debate, right? And the structure of how you can debate and all that. Just all of that you can do, or which is the best, the knowledge, all of that is important. Nobody's saying no, but he says that still will not completely eradicate the desires and everything you have. So chittardri bhavam uchair vapushi cha pulakam, harsha bhashpam cha hitva, chittam shuddhyet katham va, kimu bahu tapasa vidyaya vita bhaktehe. चित्तार्ध्रीभावमुच्चैर्वपुषि च पुलकं हर्षभाष्पं च हित्वा चित्तं शुध्येत् कथं वा किमु बहुतपसा विद्यया वीतभक्तेः
चित्तार्द्रेर्भावमुच्चैर्वपुषि च पुलकं हर्षबाष्पं च हित्वा चित्तं शुद्ध्येत् कथं वा किमु बहुतपसा विद्यया वीतभक्तेः चित्तार्द्रेर्भावमुच्चैर्वपुषि च पुलकं हर्षबाष्पं च हित्वा चित्तं शुद्ध्येत् कथं वा किमु बहुतपसा विद्यया वीतभक्तेः
चित्ताद्रीभावमुच्चैर् बभुषि पुलगम् बाष्पञ्च हित्वा चित्तं शुद्धे कदं वा किमु बहुतपसा विद्यया वीतभक्तेः चित्ताद्रीभावमुच्चैर् बभुषि पुलगम् हर्षबाष्पां च हित्वा चित्तं शुद्धे कदं वा किमु बहुतपसा विद्यया वीतभक्तेः
त्वत् गाथास्वाद सिद्धांजन, so id and dha, siddhanjana satata mari mrijyamanoyamatma, so that entire line is together, comma chakshur vat tattva sukshmam bhajati, comma nathu tathabhyastaya, so that's one word, tathabhyastaya tarka kotya. त्वद्घातास्वादसिद्धाञ्जन सततमरी मृज्यमानोऽयमात्मा चक्षुर्वत्तत्त्वसूक्ष्मं भजति न तु तथाभ्यस्तया तर्ककोट्या
कोट्यामा वेरु कोट्यावा
कोट्या just yeah no im
त्वद्गाता स्वादसिद्धाञ्जन सततमरी मृज्यमानोऽयमात्मा चक्षुर्वक्तत्वसूक्ष्मं भजति न तु तथाभ्यस्तया तर्ककोट्या त्वद्गाता स्वादसिद्धाञ्जन सततमरी मृज्यमानोऽयमात्मा चक्षुर्वक्तत्वसूक्ष्मं भजति न तु तथाभ्यस्तया तर्ककोट्या
त्वद्गादास्वाद सिद्धाञ्जन सतत मरीं रुज्यमानोऽयमात्मा चक्षुर्वत्तत्वसूक्ष्मं भजति न तु व्यस्तया तर्ककोट्या त्वद्गादास्वाद सिद्धाञ्जन सतत मरीं रुज्यमानोऽयमात्मा चक्षुर्वत्तत्वसूक्ष्मं भजति न तु तदाप्यस्तया तर्ककोट्या
त्वद्घाता स्वाद Sijjan, oh sorry, we already did that. Okay, so we'll switch over. Just see here. So Narayan, so Sindhuji, you, and then Vasu, you can be students. Okay. Stanza 7. Dhyanam te shilaheyam samatanu sukabadhasano nasikagranyastakshah purakadhehi jitapavana pataschitta padmam tvavancham ऊर्ध्वाघं भावयित्वा रविविदुषिकिनः संविचिन्तोपरिष्टात् तत्रस्थं भावये त्वां सजलजलधर श्यामलं कोमलाङ्गम्. The next, I think 2-3, I'll kind of try to say it all together, right? So I just have my notes here because it's a little complicated. So this one, right, Uddhava is actually asking that if somebody has to attain liberation through meditation, right? So this kind of goes to the Ashtanga yoga thing only. He says, what should he meditate on? How should he meditate? And what is that process, right? So here, so then Krishna then says, he says, you sit, first of all, the posture, I think this goes, like, I know we didn't spend much time on Ashtanga yoga, we'll probably do it at the end. So he says, sit at the right posture, all of that stuff. And the pranayama, the breath control is absolutely important, right? So he says, how you take it in, hold it, take it down, and you have to do it several times over several days and years to get that pranayama under control. That's number one. And then he says, see, the thing is, people completely close their eyes, right? He says, and if you look at some of the pictures of even Shiva meditating or even Narayana meditating, the eyes are not completely closed. The eye should be little open, right? At the very bottom, the eye should be little open, not completely shut. right? And then don't imagine, some people say you focus on between your eyebrows and all. Krishna says no, the Ashtanga Yoga's method of meditation is, it says you have to focus on the tip of your nose, right? You have to imagine the form of a Lord who is on the tip of a nose. The size is such that it can go through your nostril. So that is the size. So you imagine the full 4 Chaturbhujam Lord at the tip of your nose, and then you keep your eyes a little open, get your prana under control, which is going to happen earlier, and then you start meditating on that Lord. And then he then goes on to say, and then it's very complicated, because he says you have to bring your prana energy from the chakras. You have to be able to control your energy so much that you're able to move it up, right? So that is all advanced stage of this Ashtanga Yoga. But anyway, he says once you are there, then you start imagining my form. First, you imagine the full form of the Lord. See, because when you start zooming in your mind, you will going to get distracted. So it's very easy for us to imagine the full form of the Lord, right? Step 1. He says, first you meditate on my full form. Once you have control and you're able to meditate on my full form, when he says with Chaturbhujam, which is what the next set of stanzas are going to say, which is all we've already seen before, right? The same description is going to come, dark blue form, all of that stuff. Then he says, then you zoom in, and then you just focus on my smiling face. So all you're going to meditate, next level of meditation, is just on the face of the Lord. And once you have complete control over the form of the Lord and you achieve that level of meditation, then you have to now meditate on the Brahman who's formless. So now you even remove the face of the Lord, and then you meditate on nothingness. Just only when you reach that stage of meditating on nothingness completely, then you are advanced in that dharana and dhyana situation of the Ashtanga Yoga, and then the next one is Samadhi that goes further. So that is what he's talking through. The next 3 is really about Ashtanga Yoga. We'll have a separate session on that if we have time towards the end of the class. But the point being is, if you sit and you meditate on nothing, you will always, your thoughts will wander. So he says, this is the practice of meditation. And then, of course, there are different people have different rules, but this is what is said in the Ashtanga Yoga. So, dhyanam te shilayeyam, samathanu sukha bhaddhasano nasikagra. So, nasikagra means end of the nose. Nasikagra, and then put a plus. Nyastakshaha, put a F, Nyastakshaf, Purakadhyehi. So put a visarga and a comma, Purakadhyehi. Next time on top of the Jita, the ear goes away. Jita, Pavana, Patash, Chitta, Padmam, Tvavancham. Dhyanam te shilaheyam samatanu sukha bhaddhasano nasika granyastakshaf purakadhyehi. Jita pavana pataschitta padmam tvavancham.
Dhyanam deshilayeyam samadanu sugabadhasano nasigagratnyastakshapuragadhyehi jita pavana padaschitta padmam tvavancham. Dhyanam deshilayeyam samadanu sugabadhasano nasigagratnyastakshapuragadhyehi jita pavana padaschitta padmam tvavancham.
Dhyanam te shilayeyam samathanusukabadhasano nasikagranyastakshaf purakadhyehi jitapavanapatas chittapadmam tvavancham. Dhyanam te shilayeyam samathanusukabadhasano nasikagranyastakshaf purakadhyehi jitapavanapatas chittapadmam tvavancham.
So the second line, first word, Nyastaksha.
Oh,
I think you said Nya or something. Nyastaksha. That's it.
Nyastaksha. Okay, perfect.
Urdhvagram bhavayitva, Ravi vidhu shikinaha. Put is shikinas. Samvichintyoparishtat. So that is one word. Samvichintyoparishtat, Tatrastam bhavaye tvam, sajala jaladhara shyamalam komalangam. Urdhvagram bhavayetva ravi vidushikinas samvichintyoparishtat tatrastam bhavaye tvam sajala jaladhara shyamalam komalangam.
Rajeshji, is there a comma after samvijindyo parishtad?
Yeah, end of that line. Yeah. So after bhavayitva and then at the end of that line.
Urdhvagram bhavayitva revividushigina samvijindyo parishtad tatrastam bhavayetvam sajala jaladhara syamalam komalangam. Urdhvagram bhavayitva revividushigina samvijindyo parishtad tatrastam bhavayetvam sajala jaladhara syamalam komalangam.
ऊर्ध्वाग्रं भावयित्वा रविविदुषिखिनः परिष्टात् तत्रस्तं भावये त्वां सजलजलधर श्यामलं कोमलाङ्गम् ऊर्ध्वाग्रं भावयित्वा रविविदुषिखिनः परिष्टात् तत्रस्तं भावये त्वां सलजलधर श्यामलं कोमलाङ्गम्.
आनीलश्लक्ष्णकेशं ज्वलितमकरसत्कुण्डलं मन्दहास्यस्यन्धार्द्रं कौस्तुभश्रीपरिगतवनमालोरुहाराभिरामं श्रीवत्साङ्कं सुबाहुं मृदुलसदुदरं काञ्चनच्छायचेलं चारुस्निग्धोरुमम्बोरुहललितपदं भावयेऽहं भवन्तम्. So again, this is a lot of the words, common known words. So I'll meditate bhavantam. This is the dharana. There's a dharana and then dhyana. Dhyana is the highest state of meditation. The dharana is kind of coming slightly before that. The dharana is you're forcing yourself to meditate. Dhyana is it's just coming naturally. You just close your eyes and then you're gone into dhyana, which means you don't know anything that is happening. You are not thinking about anything either. Right? So that's the state of which is the next stanza that's going to come. So here in dharana, he says the best way is you visualize the form of the Lord, which is here again, Anilash Lakshna Kesham in the blue form with Jwalita Makarasat, the fish-shaped earrings which are there on the 2 ears, and then with a Mandahasa Syandardram with a very smiling face, and then the Kaustuba jewelry, and then Vanamalam, which is the garland that he's actually wearing, Shivat Sankam with the Shivat Samak. So all of the same thing which you discussed in the past as well. She says, just imagine this form of the Lord, and you constantly keep meditating on this form of the Lord, right, for the Dharana stage. And all of this, like I said, all of this, you should get to a state where you're imagining this form of the Lord in a size that can enter into your nostril. And the Lord is situated at the tip of your nose, right? With this entire form of the Lord. So again, all of this is step by step. You can't get there on day one. First, you imagine the full form of the Lord, and then you start bringing it, because eventually what he's going to say is you have to take the Lord in, right, into your body. Because if you remember Markandeya Rishi, when the pralayam was happening, and then he saw the form of the Lord lying in the banana leaf, right? So at that time, he then inhales. When he inhales, then the entire Lord goes in, right? That is what he's imagining, right? He's imagining the entire Lord is going in, and then inside him, he's seeing the Lord now situated, right? So he says the Lord is already situated inside. You just cannot imagine. So he says, with this, you imagine, you take him inside, rest him in your heart, and then imagine the entire Lord being inside, not only the Bhagavan being inside, but the entire world inside your heart, right? And that is the level of you have to imagination you have to get to, right? But anyway, here he says first you just imagine this form of the Lord, right? So Anila Shlakshna Kesham, Jwalita Makara Sat Kundalam Manda Hasa, and then put a plus, Syandardram, and then a comma. So one comma after Kesham, one comma after Syandardram, comma, Kaustubha Shri Parigata Vana Maloru Harabhiramam. Anilashlashnakesham Jwalita Makarasat Kundalam Mandahasa Syandardram Kaustubha Shri Parigata Vana Maloru Harabhiramam.
Anilaslashnakesham Jolidamagarasatkundalam Mandahasasyandardraм Kaustubasri Varigadavanamalorharabhiramam. Anilaslashnakesham Jolidamagarasatkundalam Mandahasasyandardraм Kaustubasri Varigadavanamalorharabhiramam.
आनीलक्ष्णकेशं ज्वलितमकरः सत्कुण्डलं मण्डहास स्यन्धार्द्रं कौस्तुभश्रीपरिगतवनमालोरुहाराभिरामम् आनीलक्ष्णकेशं ज्वलितमकरः सत्कुण्डलं मण्डहासस्यन्दाद्रं कौस्तुभश्रीपरिगतवनमालोरुहाराभिरामम्
श्रीवत्साङ्कं सुबाहुं मृदु लसधुदरं काञ्चनच्छायचेलं चारु स्निग्धोरुम Amboruha, if you want to break it, Charu Snigdorum Amboruha Lalita Padam, Bhavayeham Bhavantam. Srivatsankam Subhahum Mridulasadudaram Kanchana Chaya Chelam Charu Snigdorum Amboruha Lalita Padam Bhavayeham Bhavantam.
இது வந்து விஷ்ணு சஹஸ்ரநாமம்ல வர மாதிரி அந்த
yeah, it's a dhyana stokam only, because at the end of the day it's like I'm bhavayeham bhavantam, I'm meditating on this form of yours, and then he's describing the form. At the end of the day, even when Brahma sees it and various points, right, and even the 100th Dasakam, all these words repeat, because at the end of the day it's the same thing that they keep repeating again and again, right, of the form of the Lord.
Srivalsangam subahum Mradula sadudaram kanjanachayajelam charusnigdhorumambor halalidapadam bhavayeham bhavandam. Srivalsangam subahum Mradula sadudaram kanjanachayajelam charusnigdhorumambor halalidapadam bhavayeham bhavandam.
श्रीवत्साङ्कं सुबाहुं मृदुलसदुधरं काञ्चनच्छायचेलं चारुस्निग्धोरुम् अम्बोरुहललितपदं भावयेऽहं भवन्तम् श्रीवत्साङ्कं सुबाहुं मृदुलसदुधरं काञ्चनच्छायचेलं चारुस्निग्धोरुम् अम्बोरुहललितपदं Bhavayeham Bhavantam.
Sarvangeshwangarangat kutukamiti muhurdharayannisha chittam tatrapyekatra yunje vadana sarasije sundare mandahase tatralinam tu chetah paramasukachedadvaita rupe vitanvanne anyanno chintayeyam muhuruti samuparuda yogo bhaveyam. Like we just discussing earlier. So once you finish that stage of the full form, then you now only focus on Sundare Mandahase, on the smiling face of yours. Just focus only on that. That is the next level. And once you finish that, next, the third stage is Parama Sukha Chit Advaita. You have to get to that form of the Advaita form of the Lord, which is the Brahman who's formless, right? So how do you get that? He says, then you imagine that there's nothingness. Your meditation is around nothingness, right? Not the face of the Lord, not any form of the Lord, nothing. And then you imagine that that Brahman who you are meditating on, who's no form, is inside you, and inside that Brahman, you and everybody else is also there, right? So that is the thing. First of all, you have to imagine is inside of you, and then inside of that Brahman, you are also there, right? As part of the Paramatma. So is everybody else in this world, right? That consciousness and all of that is inside you, and you reach that state when you reach the pure dhyanam stage, right? You're not thinking about anything, and then you are in the state of bliss. So sarvangeshwanga rangat kutukamiti, muhur dharayan nisha chittam, tatrapyekatra yunje, vadana sarasije sundare mandahase. Sarvangeshwangarangat kutukamiti muhurdharayannisha chittam tatrapyekatra yunje vadana sarasije sundare mandahase.
Sarvangeshwangarangat kutukamiti muhurdharayannisha chittam tatrapyekatra yunje vadana sarasije sundare mandahase. Sarvangeshwangarangat कुदुगमिति रङ्गत् कुदुगमिति मुहुर्धारयन्नीश चित्तं तत्राप्येकत्र युञ्जे वदनसरसिजे सुन्दरे मन्दहासे.
ஒரு quick question. குதுக மத்தியா குதுக மிதியா?
Kutukam
அது
iti.
என்ன
Kutukam iti. Okay, sorry. It should be changed to Kutukam iti.
ஓகே
மித்தி கிடையாது.
இல்ல, Kutukam iti, but becomes Kutukam iti.
குத்துக்க மித்தி.
Yeah. Hey, Vasu, எனக்கு I have to go and drop Kashyap in 5 minutes now, looks like. Just say it one time, right? And then we'll probably try to wrap up soon today.
सर्वाङ्गेष्वङ्गरङ्गत् कुतुकमिति मुहुर्धारयन्नेष चित्तं तत्राप्येकत्र युञ्जे वदन सरसिजे सुन्दरे मन्दहासे.
Tatralinam tu chetaha, comma, parama sukha chit advaita. That is the easier way to break it. Chit advaita rupe vitanvanne, comma, anyenno chintayeyam, comma, muhuriti samuparudha yogo bhaveyam. So within one you put it in. Within one at the end of that line you put it in, comma. Next time you have double na, that becomes a. So anyenno chintayeyam. Tatralinam tu chetah paramasukachedadvaita rupe vitanvanne anyenno chintayeyam muhuriti samuparudha yogo bhaveyam.
तत्रालीनं दुचेतः परमसुखजिदद्वैतरूपे विदन्वन् अन्यन्नो चिन्तयेयं मुहुरिति समुपारूढयोगो भवेयम्.
Yeah, one time is enough.
तत्रालीनं तु चेतः परमसुखचिद् अद्वैतरूपे वितन्वन् अन्यानो अन्यन्नो चिन्तयेयं मुहुरिति समुपारूढ योगो भवेयम्.
Samuparudha.
Okay, समुपारूढ योगो भवेयम्.
Sorry guys, I have to run now, looks like. So now we'll continue the 10th stanza in the next class. Okay, we'll end the class here. सान्ध्रानन्दात्मकमनुपमितं कालदेशावधिभ्यां निर्मुक्तं नित्यमुक्तं निगमशतसहस्रेण निर्भास्यमानम् अस्पष्टं दृष्टमात्रे पुनरुरुपुरुषार्थात्मकं ब्रह्मतत्त्वं तत्तावद्भाति साक्षात् गुरुपवनपुरे हन्त भाग्यं जनानां कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि.
Rajesh, I attended.
Yeah, I saw you, Revati. Yeah.
Thank you, Rajesh.
You could join from India, I know.
A great weekend, Rajesh.
Okay, bye everyone. Bye.
Safe
Okay,
drive.
bye.
Bye.
Bye.